All right, and welcome, welcome, welcome. We're having a unique day today. Fantastic guests, and Johnny is being a terrible person once again. This is so standard operating procedure for him, where he's out recording at a major publisher, and they would not let him off to do this. I don't get it. He's just a loser. But anyway, he'll be back next week with us. So today, I have a fantastic guest, Joe Hempel. And of course, for people who don't know you, which I can't believe there's not that many people, I will say this before I give you a chance to respond here. I every week, market for all these things and put things out. And I got more messages about, all right, after people,
Oh,
found
excellent.
out it was you compared to a lot of other, we had a lot of people, and you're writing that right at the top there, where it's like a lot of people responded. It's pretty cool. So and people are saying hello in
Very
the chat,
cool.
whether you can see it or not.
Hey, everybody.
And so, tell us something good. What's happening? Great.
Um, you know, there's a lot of great stuff that's happening. Fright Night Audio, my audio publishing company. If you Google them, uh, if you just Google like horror audiobook publisher, Google AI comes up and says we're the leading audiobook publisher in the horror genre. So that's pretty neat. Um, and then yeah, just very happy to stay busy and have a lot of work and currently recording like a dungeon core fantasy, and then also like uh, got some horror coming up next, of course.
Yeah, well, all right. So that leads in the perfect first question. How in the world did you become the most horrifying guy in audiobook world?
um, so I have a very big love of horror. I love I cut my teeth in elementary school on Stephen King. Um,
That's not
and
normal.
it was just the school so the school didn't think so either.
Yeah.
When I was in 5th or 6th grade, I did my book report on Cujo, and the teacher went to my mom and said that they were concerned
Yeah. Well, I would
because
be
of the
too.
content I was reading. And she just looked at them and said, "So he's reading it higher than a 6th grade level. What's the big deal?"
Okay.
And
So you
just
have a good
yeah,
mom.
she always supported what I was doing as far as that was concerned, especially when it came to things scholastically,
Okay.
and reading and stuff like that. She was always very, very big on reading. Um, but, me and my dad when, I was a little bit older, 6th grade, things like that, we would go to the gas station or the convenience store and rent, like, beta tapes or VHS tapes, and that's where I kinda, um, I got my love of horror. I remember
Well,
watching, like,
how
Basket
old
Case and
how old were you when this was happening ish?
probably, like, 12.
Okay. Just for perspective. I have a
Yeah,
younger
it's probably
daughter.
like probably like 12.
I have a daughter in her 20s, late 20s right now, and she was
Mhm.
just traumatized by some of the Disney movies that we would watch, and these were the classic Disney stuff. I mean, and so yeah. So your parents and you were paying attention to things that my some of my kids would have just totally freaked out on, but
Yeah,
clearly you were able to separate reality from fantasy or horror well enough,
absolutely,
you know. But so
absolutely.
and then when you first started in audiobooks, now let's
Mhm.
perspective. How long you been doing this? I know the answer to this, but roughly.
A decade.
Okay, because I for some
Yeah, a little more than a decade.
we met fairly early on. I've known you.
Yeah,
I don't remember not knowing you in this business. Okay, but I,
yeah,
I
yeah,
can
we connected very early on.
yeah yeah. I agree. I knew it was. I started looking back on, wow, I don't know, 10 years, and
Mhm.
I and right at the start, did you start with doing what were the first kind of books that you were doing?
So, I had a review website where I was getting books, like, this was, like, even before NetGalley was a thing, like, they were sending me books to read and review. So, like, I had physical copies of, like, library bound Star Wars books, that were just like a plastic cover and things like that. But I had a big love of horror, and they would all the authors would come to this convention in Cincinnati when I lived in Cincinnati, and I would go to these conventions not to meet the celebrities, but to meet the authors and buy their books and review them and things like that. And so I just, I reached out when I think it was a guy named T. Morris. He was like he had a book out and he was big into audiobooks like J.C. Hutchins and Scott Sigler and all them like so many years ago. And he had a guy named Keith DeCandido who was narrating it for him. And I was like, oh, how or no, he was narrating Keith R.I.D. Candido, who um did a great Star Trek book, Articles of the Federation. And I was like, "How did you guys link up, like, outside of a publisher and stuff?" And T. Morris was like, "Oh, hey, ACX." And so I went on to ACX and I saw a couple books that I was like, "Oh, why not? I'll give it a shot."
Right.
I didn't have any setup or anything like that. And I did a couple like, you know, prepper books or backpacking books before they were written by AI and actually were written by humans.
Yes, I did too.
And then I just started reaching out to horror authors because I loved horror and horror audiobooks were not getting any sort of love in the publishing realm. And so I started there and then just continuously built from there and kind of became synonymous with it. And when I started taking acting classes and coaching sessions and stuff like that, I looked at the text onto where I could really dig in to what the authors are trying to say. And
Wait,
after that, I just became
yeah, I don't understand that. So it's not just you're not just reading it.
no, no, of course not. That's what they say. It's just reading a book, right?
That's
So
the I've heard that. Yes, that's what I
yeah,
hear is the
it can't be that
standard these
hard.
days. Yeah. So
Yeah.
so you ended up um taking acting classes or acting coaching and
Both, both.
what made you decide that that was actually, I mean, you were already getting jobs, so why would you go do something like that?
I sucked. Like I was getting jobs, but I like
It,
just because you're getting jobs uh, from ACX and stuff like that, I mean, it sucks to say, but it doesn't mean you're any good. Um, and I had the wherewithal to look at what I was doing, and this was like, this is I'm not good at this. And so I backed off for like 3 months, and Sean Pratt reached out and was like, "Hey, I'm getting my coaching stuff going and things like that."
yeah,
So I
this,
took immediately started taking coaching with Sean Pratt, took some local like acting classes and stuff like that, and then got hooked up with Johnny Heller and Scott Brick and you know
right.
things like that. So yeah, it's continual learning,
Yeah, and
especially in the
so
beginning.
in other words, you stopped learning about 5 years ago. Uh,
No. No. Continue to learn, continue to grow because this business is changing so rapidly. You have to stay on the forefront. So, like, virtual voice and AI, which is just awful for the industry, but let's face it, it's a lot better than some narrators coming up. And
yeah,
that
and
is
for
your
yeah,
bar.
yeah, 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 yeah,
That is your bar.
right.
If you can't be better than that, get better than that to have a career.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense. And I mean, I'm actually using AI a crazy amount these days, not for anything related to doing voices, but for all the
Mhm.
peripheral stuff that you have to do to manage a voiceover business and do the promotion for different things. I mean, we're all uh, whether we like it or not, we're all our own business, and you have to do
Yeah.
some promotion. And
Yep.
what is amazing is I see AI as a tool, and
Mhm.
you can't ignore it any more than you could ignore it. I didn't ignore the smartphone and back in the early days. I had a flip
Mhm.
phone. I had a block back in the early days of cell phones. I had a pager, all that stuff in the early part. And, we all have friends or parents who ignored a smartphone. But imagine today if you had a child, if you don't have if you can't text to them, like my kids, if I call them, the only reason they might pick up is because it's dad and they think, oh crap, it's him, I got to pick up. But I could call and I'll go to voicemail. And then if I text 10 seconds later, I'll get a response from them. And I
Yeah.
realize, oh, okay, they'll respond to a text immediately. A phone call might get a response, and you'll see grandparents that they've learned to text, if nothing else, because that's what people they want to communicate with are
Yeah.
doing. And you can ignore smartphones, and our grandparents can, but they do it at their own peril. And I do see the AI stuff, so it's definitely. But I used to drum machines are the same way, by the way. So when I was a young musician, they were taking over, and and we thought, oh, this is the kiss of death for musicians, and this is going back 40 years. But it's definitely one of those things that there's a period where it's
Mhm.
prevalent, and then they go back to real musicians. And today there's still a lot of, but the machines are so sophisticated. So,
Right.
but they still miss all sorts of things. It's crazy. And so a lot of times, even on the stuff that is recorded with machines these days, there's a real drummer playing parts of it, and you have both. And yeah, anyway, we can't ignore the
Right.
AI. It's definitely going to
Right.
be around, and there certainly can help your business in a lot of other ways. Um, but that's amazing. But let's get back to you,
Absolutely.
which is more important because you're not going to. So it sounds to me like you're gonna maybe you're done with the horror thing and you're moving on to doing fantasy young adult stuff.
I narrate everything, but, horror is where I live. It's where I live, it's what I enjoy, it's what I'm connected to the most, but I narrate everything. I just wrapped up a romance, like doing a dungeon core. I'm gonna be doing horror after that, um, some, like, fantasy noir stuff coming up, um,
Well,
science fiction. I love science fiction, so I'll do science fiction any day of the week.
so what do you think is the hottest stuff that's going now? If you were a beginner, and you hadn't yet selected a genre, and you didn't have your horror background, where would you recommend that your younger brother, pretend you had one that's just starting in this business, or a sister, where would you recommend that they start from?
I would recommend starting from what they enjoy reading. Whatever genre they enjoy reading personally, start there,
Okay. Why?
um, because you'll enjoy it more. Rather than dipping your toe into something that's unknown, like, "Oh, maybe I wanna do this, maybe I don't," because this is a lot of work, and if you're gonna jump in and maybe not enjoy it, why don't you just start with something that you know you're going to enjoy? Because that way, if it doesn't work out, well, it was a good experience, it was a fun book, it was it was something I liked to read.
Yeah, and I think the
So
dirty secret in this business is the fun part is the performing, is being in the booth, is doing
mhm,
the acting parts. There's still a lot of things around the edges that you have to do.
it's
Sending
everything
in
else.
files, where all of a sudden one day your internet connection isn't working as well as it should, or the servers on the other end, and you end up spending 4 times as much time as you expected to get the stupid files from point A to point
Mhm,
B. That has nothing to do. Nobody gets in this business in order to deal with moving files around, but we all, like almost everyone in
mhm,
this business, has a high speed connection or is looking to get
yes.
one, right? They-
I I don't can you do this without a high-speed connection? I couldn't imagine sending the files we have in with dial-up.
Well, every once in a while, I'll run into somebody who happens to live in an area where the only thing they
Mhm.
have is a satellite connection that happens to be one of the older, slower. There are
Oh,
some new
wow, okay.
satellites that are pretty amazing. And that's all they had because of where they live. And they still
Mhm,
can do because they have a nice home studio. But I kind of think, okay, but I think you adapt to it and go, okay, I'm going to send this stuff and go have lunch. And it might take 4 hours to do something that's going to take you 3 minutes on your connection. And they
mhm.
learn to live with it and work around it. And
Yeah,
luckily you can do that. But boy, there's a lot
mhm.
but you still have to market. You still have to go ahead. Now, do you still reach out to publishers, or how do you get work? or do they just throw it in your lap now because you're so well
Oh,
established?
no, I
So
reach out. I'll find out from authors. I'll find out from authors or book publishers what is going on with their audio rights. Like, oh yeah, no, this book's coming out next year. It was sold to this publisher. It was sold to that publisher. And as soon as I find out, I'm emailing the publisher and said, hey, you may not have hit your desk yet, but I'd like to be considered for this particular book.
it may not have hit your
Um,
desk yet, but I've
it
been
might still
doing
be
my
in the
homework.
yeah,
And,
it's in the well, yeah, it's in the acquisition phase of it, so it may
okay.
not hit the casting directors yet.
So you're a little bit proactive. Is that what I'm hearing?
I'm I try to be very proactive.
All right.
I
So,
try to be very
all
proactive.
right. I'm ignorant. So I know nothing about this. How in the world would I get started? So I want to be proactive like you.
Mhm.
But getting started, I don't even know where to start. So where do you recommend that I start? So I'm not proactive. I don't do I go look on upandcomingbooks.com, or how are you finding that a book is even available?
Um, be a member of the communities that you wanna read. Like, and don't just be there because you wanna be a voice actor and you want to narrate audiobooks for them. Be a fan, be a friend, connect with people in the community. This is not a short game business. What's happening now for me is the product of, and I'm gonna say even before I started narrating, is the product of 15 years of relationships in the genre.
Okay. So
So,
you were visiting, and you're part of communities that are into
mhm,
horror, whether it's audiobook or not. Is that
audio, generally books,
okay?
like
So
books, are the ones. So there's giant Facebook groups that have authors and fans and, things like that where they'll talk about their new and upcoming books and that sort of thing.
okay.
And it's also a really good way to be one, you're a member of that group, and if they like you and you are pleasant to be around, um, they'll talk about upcoming books and what it means to have people read them and things like that. But
Well, and
you'll
also,
just naturally be a part of it where they trust you and where you know you're not looking at the authors as a cash cow, because let's face it, there's a lot of authors that really feel they're being pulled in several different directions with editors and formatters and cover artists and SEO people and now narrators are coming in, and that's a bigger portion than a lot of it, asking them for more money when the margins of the book that they wrote aren't necessarily the largest to begin with.
right.
So, um but the nice thing about being a part of those communities, you can see what people are talking about. What's getting buzz? What are the fans excited for and listening for? And as an audiobook narrator, especially if you're new,
Hmm.
that is a good way to jump onto a title and approach them for royalty share, because no upfront cost to them, but it's getting a lot of buzz.
Okay.
So if it's getting a lot of buzz from fans, it has the opportunity to sell really well.
Right. And one of the things that I see in almost all the groups. You and I are in a bunch of Facebook groups
Mhm.
together, and somebody newer goes, "Well, ACX is trash," and it's like, Okay, yes. I mean, I agree. But also,
Yeah.
there's still opportunity there that if you go out and find the right author, then and the right book,
Mhm.
then royalty share can work very well for you. If you take the random, now you said you did like some prepper books. Did I hear that?
Oh, yeah, and I got paid like trash.
Okay, here's the weird thing.
Yeah, it
Um,
is trash.
Early on, I go back at least 10 years. I did some prepper books because they had this. It was a lot of criteria that I had to jump through all these hoops. I think there was
Mhm.
the fog the mirror test. Put a mirror under my nose. If I fogged it, I passed. I think I was just the first one that said yes, I will do it. And
Yeah.
these were at that time hour and a half books or something, and I had not done any. And I'm not an actor. I went and I did a series of prepper books to learn some things early on.
Mhm.
And the funniest thing, this guy, some TV shows came on about prepping, Netflix shows or some streaming shows came on, and all of a sudden these books start selling. I still get 10 years later.
Great.
I get some I don't get a lot, but I get an amazing amount of royalty every
Mhm.
month from some books I did 10 years ago. And he put them in the bundles. At one point, the good thing was I had kept all my files, and it was probably 2 years later after I'd done them. He said, "Can we put these into bundles?" And he put them into 4 or 5 hour, 6 hour bundles, and the bundles sold really well because of these. Anyway, so sometimes you can take something like that, and I had no
Mhm.
expectations of making a dime. That for me was part of my learning, and it was different back then. Um, and that turned out to be an amazing thing over time, those books. So you never really know, but boy, a lot smarter.
Right.
What's your criteria if you were to look at an author and say, that book has potential? So you hear buzz. Is there anything else you look
Mhm.
for in an author as far as whether you
Um,
want to work with them?
I'd like to see, a decent social media presence. They don't have to have 30,000 followers or anything like that, but I'd like to see them actively communicating with people. There are a lot of people that if they don't, they just won't even buy their book, which is kind of crazy to me, because I do feel like readers expecting or feeling entitled to access is kind of weird. Um, but
Explain that to me. What do you wait? What readers expect? I don't understand that. Say that.
they're entitled access to the person who wrote the book. Like I won't buy it if you don't communicate with me.
Okay.
I I think that's kind of a weird and entitled way to look at things. Like
Right.
why does he have to talk to you for you to enjoy the art or whoever? But um with social media, that's just the way it is now.
So
And
are you saying a lot so in other words, if an author puts themselves out and allows themselves to be part of the community and communicate with their audience, that's a better thing? That's that you look at as a real major positive or just
I look
maybe?
at that as a yeah, I look at that as a major positive, and I look at it based off of the interactions. Um, and I also look at, you know, are they kind of controversial online as well?
Is that
Because
good or bad?
that's a good thing. That's a good thing. Controversy sells.
Okay.
Like, and it doesn't have to be about their book. It's just, a lot of times authors will post crazy things and they'll get engagement. And that's, you know,
Right.
engagement is king.
Right.
Um, so I'll look at social media presence, I'll look at previous books. Um,
Okay, so that means I'm going to
yeah.
read between the lines there. Previous books, you're looking at authors that have a series.
Not necessarily a series, but has their other books done well?
Oh, okay, so they've written more than one book. How about is that a
Yeah,
better way to
they've
put it?
they've written more than one book.
Okay.
I'll take the chance on a brand new author for
Mhm.
sure. I'll, especially if they have a great social media presence. I took the chance on a brand new author, did a book called Cursed Among Us, did it for royalty share, and then about 2 months in, it got an Audible daily deal and it sold 4,000 copies in a day. I mean,
So, okay, but now what let's talk about that one. You took a chance. What made that book stand out to you? So what were you looking for when that one fit all the little criteria that made sense to take a chance on? What was
it
that you were
was
thinking?
it checked all of the boxes that were like, it was nostalgic. It took place in, like, the late '80s, early '90s about a bunch of kids discovering an old evil in this small town, and for me, it was just like, "Oh, this is gonna be fun," and so, I took the chance.
Okay. Okay.
So
But that's informative for other people. And so that's you took
mhm,
something that you wanted that you thought was fun.
yep.
You like their
Yeah,
presence.
the only way I will take a royalty share book is if I think I'm going to have fun, because if I don't make money from it, at least it adds to my portfolio in a way that is meaningful and I got to have fun.
Okay.
And then even then it just keeps your name out there and it keeps you relevant and it keeps, the conversation going about you.
Yeah, well, you've done
So yeah.
Well, okay, but over the last, I mean, I know this for a fact. We've known each other 10 years, and if you've done 600 plus books, then that means you took lots of breaks and did nothing. Or you've got 60 books a year. So that's on average more than a book a week for 10 years. All right. So
Roughly.
yeah, I mean, I'm underselling it. I mean, this guy's been, for everyone reading between the lines, to be very explicit, you ain't sat on your rear end much for the last 10 years. Um,
No. I work 7 days a week.
okay, clearly, clearly.
I work 7 days a week. I don't f so it's not for everybody. The way I did things was not for everybody. I was working a full-time job. I was recording a couple hours a day. I was getting, like, maybe 3 hours of sleep at night, and I would record, like, an hour, hour and a half every night before I would go to my 3rd shift job, and then I would record, like, 2 hours or more on each day on the weekends. I was basically putting in full-time hours with a full-time job and 3 kids and things like that, and I did that for 2.5 years before I went full-time.
Wow.
Um, but by that time, I had built something that I could grow. Excuse me.
Yeah, clearly, clearly.
So
And even so, hey, I know on the side you are a wrestling referee.
Mhm.
What's that all about?
Yeah,
Because I mean, you just
before
fell into that. I mean, hey, all right,
no,
I'll be a good, I'll referee. Yeah, you need somebody, call me.
no, so my degree is in, audio engineering and videography, back when you were using razor blades to splice the
Yes,
3/4 inch tapes,
yes, I've done it. Cool.
um, and, so there was a local wrestling school in Cincinnati that, I didn't know this when I came in, but they were a developmental territory for World Championship Wrestling, and, the guy the guy that owned it at the time, Les Thatcher, was like, "Yeah, you can come in and shoot stuff for us and things like that." And then when the WWF/E bought, WCW, it became a WWF developmental territory as well.
I don't
Um,
even understand what that means.
so it was where all of the stars that they signed,
Uh-huh.
they would go to train, or if they were like, "We'll put you in a developmental contract and we'll get you better before you're ready for Raw or SmackDown or Monday Nitro," or something like that.
Okay.
So, it was kind of, not necessarily a school, but, now that you have the skills, we're gonna develop you for our product.
Okay. Way over my pay grade.
Yeah.
And you were hanging around there, obviously,
I
doing.
was I was hanging around there, I wanted to lose weight, I asked if I could start training, and the way that they train referees is they train as if they're a wrestler.
Okay, that makes sense.
Because if the because the referee is way more integral to the production than most people think. They're kind of like the director in a way.
Oh, okay.
Um, they'll tell them, "Hey, you've got X amount left. Hey, you need to finish this match up." Um, you know, they'll they'll take care of the wrestlers and stay out of their way and let them do their thing. um,
So you were positron, is that what you're saying?
yeah, in a way. In a way. Um,
I didn't
but
realize they were directors and they were doing that. But it would
so
make sense you'd have
yeah,
to
they
be
wear an earpiece.
reasonable at it in order to referee that sort of thing, because
Mhm.
you have to know a little bit about it. I would guess.
But yeah, so I think the biggest joy was one, just getting to perform in front of people in that way. Um, I had actually wrestled under a mask once because they needed somebody to just get beat up because somebody didn't show up. So I volunteered to get beat up. Um, and then uh I've been in the ring with the like Ricky Steamboat and Harley Race and um Leilani Kai, just from the people that were big way back then. Um,
All of which I know nothing about. You could say
so
Jim Bozo, and I'd go, okay,
yeah,
because I I'm totally ignorant of that world, but cool. So in other words, some people that became big stars, you were around when they were in their developmental phases. Maybe?
John Cena. Yeah, John Cena, Randy Orton, Brock Lesnar,
Cool.
Batista,
And
um,
do you still get to do that at
yeah.
all?
No, no,
No.
I have absolutely no time, and,
Well, now you have.
I'd li you know, I miss the I do miss the indie scene sometimes, but, I don't have time. Um, the one of the guys who took over, his name was Cody Hawk, and he now runs and he trains a micro wrestling federation that comes out of, Pigeon Forge, Tennessee. They had a Discovery series called Big Little Brawlers, and so they travel the US, and, he comes through here a couple times a year, and we get to hang out and talk about things while he's,
That's cool.
getting the ring set up
Yeah.
and all that stuff.
We have an interesting question here from Simon, so I'm gonna pull this up.
Mhm.
Now, Simon, so Simon says, aside from get some coaching, what is the best piece of advice you'd give a new narrator less than a year? And I just want to say before you answer, everybody, both of us are going to say, get some coaching. Okay. So we will talk about the other things as well,
Mhm.
but there is nothing that matches having uh, somebody who really knows
Yeah.
putting their ear to what you're doing.
Mhm.
But in addition to that, what do you say for somebody that's newer? What are you gonna do in addition to saying get some coaching?
Um, so I'll speak real quick on coaching. Sometimes if you get coaching, you're not the coach and you are not a good match, and sometimes that happens. But what's valuable about getting a coaching session where you're not matching is you get a perspective that might be a little bit different, but it also teaches you, okay, this definitely isn't for me because this doesn't fit a particular style that I do. So that's something that's valuable. Outside of coaching, listen critically to audiobooks every day. And don't just passively listen while you're driving in the car, critically listen. When I started doing some like thriller kind of stuff, um, and things that had like moments of wonder and levity, but then got really intense. I went and I was like, okay, what book did I enjoy that really has that? And it was like, oh, Jurassic Park by Scott Brick. And I critically listened to how did he take just that sense of wonder and turn it into terror.
Right.
So that's what I would do. Critically listen to audiobooks.
And so I'm gonna, for example, somebody, Simon, this probably doesn't apply. This I don't even know if it applies to you. I doubt it applies to you. But somebody newer will see the text. She screamed at the top of her lungs, or she screamed, not realizing that that little attribution is saying she was emotional in this way. But there's about
Mhm.
30 ways you could play that scream and have the same, and you can have the intent without
Yeah,
screaming into your mic as loud as you can.
right,
And I
right.
mean, how in the world did you like, I do see one of the things that newer people do. They'll send me something and they'll say, yeah, um, it said she screamed or he screamed. And so I'm screaming into my mic and it's like, it doesn't sound right. And it's like, well, okay. So, have you ever dealt with
Yeah.
that?
Yeah, I see all the time, turn the gain down on your interface, step back from the mic, things like that. Those are the wrong answer. Um,
Well, let's
just,
talk about the
if
right
they're
answers.
screaming, get your teeth like, grit your teeth and get a little grit in your voice and tighten your throat and things like that, and, "Ah!" She screamed, or he screamed, and you're not peeking, you're not doing anything, but you're getting the emotion across, and you're not insulting the listener's intelligence because, "Oh, well, they don't know she screamed," even though it says she screamed.
Right. Right.
So
Uh, so, this is a big deal.
mhm.
People think they need to scream into a mic because the text said he
You
screamed.
ruin your microphone.
Well, and also, first off, remember, people are listening very intimately to you. And
Mhm.
you I think the best example of that, have you ever seen a parent in the store and a mom? Moms are great at this. I've seen dads do it too, but I just remember my
That's a
mom. So
great analogy.
my mom could look at me and my sister and say, "Don't." She could say one word, but she did not wanna alert the whole store that we were doing something stupid. But her one word, the way she said,
Mhm.
"Don't," all of a sudden had us little kids going, "Ooh, we've crossed some line. We better back this off in some way." And, I suspect, is that close to what you're saying about this?
That is exactly it. That is a great analogy.
So how did you learn to do that? So I'm guessing, but go ahead.
Listening to audiobooks.
Okay. So you picked the other people, you found great examples of people
Mhm,
who were portraying emotion without
mhm,
screaming into their mic or whispering. I mean,
mhm,
remember, whispering is almost the same concept.
mhm.
And of course, everyone that's
Absolutely.
done any theater training knows that there's something called a stage whisper. But I mean, point being, you're on a mic. You don't need to scream.
Yeah,
And you don't need to whisper, although there are cases where you can get very close to the mic and use the mic and do some of that stuff. Also, as a drummer, my instructor would always say, you can only play so loud. There's a limit to how loud you can get. There's almost no, but what you're really looking for is contrast. And
yeah.
it's not how loud you are, because if you're loud the whole song, then it comes that's not
No dynamics.
emotional. But if you are
Right.
you're relatively quiet to relatively loud, the gap doesn't have to be huge, but you can portray so much more emotion if you bring down some things and if you have this range as opposed to always being quiet, always being loud. Either one of those is a non-thing.
Yep.
Um, who's your favorite for? Can you think of anybody that you really the first time you notice? Oh, that's how they're doing something that's really intense without screaming. Who you have some of your favorite guys, gals?
I mean, Scott Brick, January LaVoy, Mark Thompson. Um, I know the Star Wars books have some like sound effects and music, but they're done incredibly well and are background to the story. But Mark Thompson brings a lot of emotion without overdoing it.
Okay,
Um, let's see. Hillary Huber is fantastic at things like that.
cool.
Um,
So for everyone
yeah.
out there, in whatever genre you're doing, when the next time you come across he screamed, if currently you're newer and what you're doing is trying to work on how do I turn things down so that I can scream and everyone will love me and notice that emotion. Instead, you might need to go out and find somebody in that genre that's doing it
Mhm.
without blowing their lungs out to portray that emotion. Remember, in print, all words are equal
Be allowed.
unless the
Yep.
attribution says otherwise or you know the character. So they do have to put extreme things in the print that we don't
Mhm.
need to do from a volume
Yeah.
perspective when we have a
Yeah.
mic that's that close and you have a real actor. Dynamics. Daniel said dynamics. Yes, that's a
Dynamics is exactly right, and that goes for nonfiction and fiction.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, talk about that. I nonfiction uh, is just reading and what do you mean dynamics and emotion and that stuff?
Well, I mean, nonfiction is, I wanna say, arguably harder to narrate than fiction in a lot of cases, because you have to find the author's audience and the author's passion. Obviously, they have passion for what they're talking about because they wrote a book about it. And so Sean Pratt uses this example all the time, and it's the greatest example. Um, you may not care about the number two pencil, but if you're doing a book about the number two pencil, the author has a passion for it, and people that are buying that audiobook has a passion for it. So while you're doing it, even if you don't actually have a passion for it, you need to have a passion for it.
Right. It's called
Um,
acting, I think. Right.
it's, yeah, just a little bit, a little bit. I see all the time, "Oh, AI can just do the nonfiction books." No, they can't. No, they can't, because you have to be connected and you have to care, and AI doesn't care.
Right. And AI
So
doesn't get all the it knows
and they don't get the nuance.
the nuance, the sarcasm, the if you have somebody that's remotely humorous, um,
Oh, absolutely.
then the how you say things matters.
How you say things definitely matters.
And that's what keeps us out of having to worry about the AI taking over because one, it still can't figure
Yeah,
out that that was sarcastic
right,
and figure out
right.
what the right
So
emotion would be to make that
mhm,
sarcastic and to have that little one statement or line uh, be something that actually makes a difference. Um, so
yeah, and even if it can, you still have to pay somebody to make those tweaks and make those changes and make those adjustments,
right.
and by the time it costs and the costs for that is, you might as well just hire a person.
Well, that's how the drum world, that's how the musicians world has became, but
Mhm,
it built on itself in a funny way, like that I never could have predicted. I would have thought, so the drum machines have never gone away, and not that it's the same thing, but it is the same
right,
AI where if you go back to the 80s, there's a lot of music, if anyone's old enough or listening to old school classic stuff, you're gonna find it was done by a machine. The percussion
mhm,
part, the drummers were done by machines. And then what over time it became, if they were going to use a machine for parts of it, a lot of times they would also have a musician come in and do some enhancement to it. And over time, they're like, we spent all this time doing getting it right to begin with, or getting it a certain way. And then we bring somebody in, man, there are competent people. I could get Hempel to come in and he'll practically read it without a pre-read. Now, by the way, let's talk about your prep since you don't ever read
yep.
anything advanced because you just want to be startled in the moment. Is that correct?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, if I'm startled, the audience is gonna be startled. So, no, no, absolutely not. No.
So is
Um,
there? But yeah, but how can you be emotional about it if you've already read it?
acting.
Now, please tell us about, let me shut up. How in the world
Um,
do you prep? Because you're doing a lot
I
of it.
okay, prep evolves over time. If you are brand new, when
Hmm.
I was brand new, I'd say first 3, 4 years, 5 years, I read cover to cover every single book. Um, for me right now,
Hmm.
because I've done over 600 titles,
Right.
um, I don't necessarily read cover to cover everything that I get. There are some
Right.
that I do. Nonfiction, especially if it's complicated, I wanna look all those words up, like, before the moment. It saves me some time, I'm in the mindset for research, I'm not in the mindset for performance, and then I have to stop and look that up. Um, Fiction, if I'm reading a book and I see a word that I don't necessarily know, uh, because it's so few and far between, I won't mark it in prep, I'll do it when I get there.
Right.
Um, but I'll read generally the first, depending on the length of the chapters, if it's a 10-hour book, I'll read probably the first, what would be considered 3 hours, um, and then the last 3 hours, you know, and then I'll skim through the middle.
Okay, that makes
I
sense.
won't go into a deep dive, but I wanna know where it starts, how it ends, and skimming through, I can find some of like if there's red herrings, I can find, and if there's any characters that weren't in the end that weren't in the beginning, I can search for their first instance. Um, and then, you can search for terms like accent or lilt or something like that. So you're not caught off guard if there's an accent that they don't talk about in the beginning.
Right.
And they mention it towards the end of the book. Now, if they mention they have an accent in another book, that's a whole different thing. I'm on book 4 of a series, and all of a sudden, the guy has a British accent, and I'm like, "What?"
Yeah, okay, but if it isn't in the other books, I mean, I know you're a mind reader when you're not doing audiobooks because you have children, but
Yeah.
um, but every once in a while you're gonna get caught out by that. But for most people, if you're newer though, in the beginning you pretty much read the whole. So in the beginning, of obviously, and this will evolve for everybody. If you do the
Yeah,
same, like if you do the same author and you've done three or more of their books,
yeah,
you know how they write. You have senses about things from your experience, and then
Yeah.
if you're on book 6 of something, I doubt you have to read every note because you know
No.
all sorts of details and you know, right? Wrong?
No, that's absolutely right. I'm 20. I've got a series that I'm doing that I'm 26 books in. I don't. I look at the character names and I go, okay, and then that's all I need
Right.
because it's the
Okay.
same book over and over essentially.
Yeah. So
Um,
that's and that
so I
total.
don't.
Yeah.
There's no prep for that. That's all. That's all cold read
Yeah. Okay.
because
Okay.
I know where it's going. I'm waiting for a specific line that is in every single book. Oh, yep, there it is.
Right.
And then I go, and
Well, we're all
then I
creatures
go
of
on.
habit, even authors. I mean, everybody,
Yes.
yeah. So, but let's say this, you have earned the right when you have done 10 plus books in a series from the same author
Yeah,
to
I think so.
to do less prep on that. But don't mean, if you are newer, don't mean, Joe, you are not saying that's the way you started the series. That's the way
Right.
you would approach something if you were a beginner, and you didn't approach it that way. So it's not a license to just do it. But there are things, if you know enough about it, and my wife has that. She's got a series she's doing. She's worked with this author. My son, anyway, almost anybody that's been in the business for a long time will have some authors, some projects that they already know about. And okay, in that case, yeah,
Mhm.
you don't have to do the north stuff. Now, we have two people that ask the same basic question here, and they want to
Mhm.
know, what are your favorite, what are the books that you've narrated that you're most proud of? Okay. Because that, can you think
Mhm.
of any? I'm going to go out here to,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Blackmouth by Ronald Malfi is always going to be, um, one of the books that is very, very, very close to me. Um, there is a, character in there, named Dennis who has special needs, and my son had special needs for, severe special needs, and it gave me the opportunity to kind of use my son's voice for that book. Even though my son couldn't talk and he could, he still had mannerisms, he still had a voice, he still had inflections. And so I got to use that for that particular book and kind of um honor him in that way. And since he's passed on in June, it I'm really happy that I made that choice because in a way he can kind of live on. So
that's
that book right there is will always be my top book.
right.
Like,
And
and I don't care what I could do Stephen King and that book will still be my top book.
okay, that's, that's awesome. And, I, as a parent of five, I can't imagine, but that, anyway, starts getting emotional here when you start talking
Yeah.
about those. All right. And, anyway,
Yeah,
so
who knew that question would be a little emotional?
yeah, yeah, but it's cool. It's cool. So, any, you mentioned a couple there, so I only got that one, and I have that in the chat so people can find
Mhm.
it, called Blackmouth. Or
Blackmouth.
did you?
Um,
Was there another one that you said as well? I don't remember.
oh, no, I was saying that, um, if, if I was lucky enough to get to do a Stephen King book,
Hmm.
that would still eclipse that book because of what it meant. Um,
That makes sense to me.
there is another book
Hmm.
that is just absolutely goofy as hell that I'm very, very proud of.
Hmm.
Um, Encyclopocalypse is the publisher. They got the, music and audio rights from this it's a movie novelization, and it had all kinds of singing in it. And they got all of the rights specifically to make me sing for the audiobook.
Wow. Are you a singer already?
Oh, no.
Okay. Well,
Oh, no.
yeah,
Oh, no.
I know how bad I am, so I don't sing in public.
Um,
But anyway.
so, um, but it works out because the novelization is Attack of the Killer Tomatoes.
Oh,
So there's a sing along at the start, and then there's all kinds of like, crazy songs in the middle of it.
I see it here. I've got
Um,
it. I've got it.
it,
I'm going to put this in the chat so that we
um,
can all laugh with you.
And then, the way the book is written, there is some very there's some sight gags that are on screen
Mm,
that don't necessarily, uh, you know, attribute well to the book, and the author points that out in a very, very funny way.
cool.
So, so yeah, that stretched my comfort zone a lot.
And that was
Um,
only a couple years ago.
yes. Yeah, that was only a couple years ago, and that stretched my comfort zone a lot. And one of the things that I did to just go for it and get over it was I did it live. And I
Oh,
advertised that did it live, and I'm like, "Come make fun of me because I'm terrible." And it made that book so much better.
okay. Now, uh, for a lot of us, that would be a tough thing to do. Um, and how in the
It
world
was.
did you get up the courage to say, like, so this book, did they offer this to you or you found it?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. No, 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 they came to me directly.
Okay. And
They came to me directly.
what, so first time you thought about it and you said, "Oh, I'm going to get to sing," and you at least are you're probably a lot better than what you thought. Um, but how in the world, how long did it take you to go, "Yes, I'll do this," when you at first you realized it had all these areas that are not right in your wheelhouse?
Immediately. I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
I took it right away. Like, Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, yes. I have to sing? Shit, okay. Do it scared.
Yeah.
That's all I could say. Just do it scared.
Yeah. Yeah. So I know one of the things you're known here, you're working on becoming a business titan. You have anything
Mhm.
coming up that you might be able to tell us about in terms of businesses or something that you're got working on in the
Um,
background?
um,
I don't mean
so
to put you on.
Fright Night is expanding. Fright
Yes.
Night is definitely growing.
Well, what's
We've put
Fright
out
Night
100.
first for those that don't know?
Fright Night Audio is my audio publishing company. We do a lot of royalty share. We do some PFH, not a whole lot because it's not um, because I don't have millions of dollars to invest. Um,
And someone asked
but
a question here. What do you look for when
oh,
you're casting for Fright Night?
I look for sound quality,
Hmm.
um, understanding the text. Honestly, I can figure out if somebody's right for the part within the first 10 seconds of listening to an audition. And then, like, I'll star the ones I want to listen to more. So if you're auditioning, make sure you hit it right out of the gate. Don't lead with your name. Don't lead with your email. Don't lead with anything. I want to hear the story right away.
Okay, you're normal.
If you lead with any of that stuff, I pass because I'll have, you know, I've been told I get, oh, well, you'll get more auditions if you offer per finished hour. I get 35, 40 auditions for a book. I don't need any more.
Right. Right.
Like, I don't
Yes.
need any more.
I think
And
people don't
I have
understand.
new people to Audie Award winners that are auditioning. So,
Right. Right.
um,
People don't understand, number one, for you to sit around and listen to 5 minutes times 35 by itself is a big lift.
mhm,
And so
yes,
if they don't hit it in the first 30 seconds, and you're saying 10, and I agree, but let's pretend it was as much as 30 seconds, it's still time consuming. And once
very
you go
much.
through 35, you learn this one little fact. I might find somebody slightly better in one area after that 35, but then they're going to have and you end up where it's like, nobody is perfect, perfect, perfect in every single category.
Mhm.
So out of the first 35, and that also means, should I throw an audition into you 2, 3 weeks after you've posted about it?
Um, you can I don't start listening to auditions until the audition date is done.
Oh, so, okay. So you're saying, so some
I don't
don't
have
wait.
time. Yeah. Yeah, I wait. I don't have time. So
Okay.
I set this is the date, and so
Right.
I'll set time of day for that day
Uh-huh.
to listen to auditions.
But here's the question. If you get 400 of them, do you listen to all 400? If you get 35, do you listen to 35? Or do you kind of get to a point where's the point where the fatigue sets in and you kind of go, nah, I'm taking one of these?
Um, if I find somebody pretty immediately that's right for the part, and I don't go in order, I click. I click and then I'll mark if I want to continue.
Okay.
Like it's very random because I don't want to give weight to somebody who submitted last minute over somebody who
Okay.
submitted early.
That's
Um,
that's what one of the questions. So
so yeah.
as long as I'm before that
Uh,
deadline for Fright Night, then whatever
mhm.
that is, and I have a chance.
Yes,
Well, I don't, but it would.
you might.
Yeah, we might. Okay. Okay. I'll take the bait.
Um, and I will say if there's any trigger warnings that we list, please take them seriously because we cast a lot of books that end up having to get recast because somebody doesn't like the content, and a little bit of research on your end can go a long way.
Yeah,
We
and
can list the trigger warnings, but a little bit of research can go a long way. Like, if we say it's extreme horror, expect dogs and children and, everyone to die in horrific ways, or, expect, SA, expect,
right.
all of that.
Okay.
So, if it's not something that you're comfortable with, don't audition, please.
Yeah, well, I guess that makes sense. It sounds easy, but I'm guessing people are auditioning. You wouldn't say that if there weren't people auditioning, and you have to get to a certain point now where you've said yes to somebody
Mhm.
and then recast it later. That means somebody
Yeah.
didn't do their homework.
I'm in the middle of yeah, I've had to of the 136. Fortunately, it doesn't happen too much. In the 136 titles that Fright Night has put out over the past 2 years, we've had to recast about 15 of them.
Okay, but that's still almost
That's
that's
still
not
a lot.
10%, but it's pretty close to that, and that's kind of
Yeah,
crazy when
yeah.
but you've gotten really good and really explicit now about the what do you call them?
Trigger warnings.
Trigger warnings. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. I have one author that is just like, "It's all of them. Just expect everything." And
Okay.
it's some of the most vile, disgusting stuff that I've ever read, and I'm like, "Oh, wow, okay. So we're
Okay.
doing this." Like, "Yes, it does. It makes money."
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
So,
There's an audience for it, in
um,
other words, that's yours.
there is an audience for it.
Okay.
Um, and yeah, the other thing we have going on is, I can't say a whole lot about this because the talks are pretty advanced at this point.
Mhm.
We'll see what happens, but I am in talks to buy a publishing company.
And that means
And so book publishing,
okay, okay.
not audiobooks, book publishing.
Okay. And but that means you would be doing both, I assume. Maybe?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. All
Yep.
right. Well, that's
Yep.
cool.
I'll be
Well, you'll have
doing
to keep us informed on that. Anything else that you can tell us about? We're wrapping up here because we're done in a couple minutes. But anything that I wasn't smart enough to ask you that would be interesting for our audience that you'd like to talk about?
um not really. I'm a pretty boring guy. If I'm honest, I'm
Well,
a pretty boring
all
guy.
right,
So I like horror, I like going to conventions, I like talking to people.
and you're humble.
I'm
Okay.
I'm
Uh,
fairly extroverted, so
oh, and Simon does ask a really great. We'll ask.
yeah,
Well, this is our last question here. I mean, you can put. Are you starting to gather a stable of narrators? Like sometimes, do you already have somebody cast in mind? Like the book gets to you and you go, for Fright Night, this would be perfect for Johnny
yeah,
Heller or somebody else, whatever. Do you do that
yes,
sometimes?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I do that.
But that's normal,
It's
right?
That's normal.
I
That's
mean,
that's normal.
and then if that person
Uh-huh.
isn't available, then you go to the auditions. I mean, sometimes you might have two or three people in mind right when you get the book, correct?
Yeah. Generally, I'll have 2 or 3 people in mind. Sometimes authors will request.
Okay.
Um, Judith Sonnet is, an amazing, amazing author,
Hmm.
and she always requests, "Hey, is Danielle available for this?
Okay.
Can you do this one for me?" Because 'Cause I'll get a lot of requests for me to do their books as well, but,
Yeah.
due to time, I can't do them all.
Right.
It's like, "Okay, can you wait till July of next year?" No, I'm not
Three
booked
years
out
from
that
now,
far,
I'll do it. Right.
but I am booked out till, like, February, so it's like, "Hey, I can do it then."
Right.
So,
Right. So if they're
but,
yeah, okay. So that makes sense. All right, but that tells us two things. One, sometimes the people who somebody wants aren't available, and that's your chance to get in there if you're new.
yes.
and then you become part of the team
Mhm.
if they do a good job and if
Yeah.
they do everything else related to not just narration, but being on
Mhm.
time, being good to work with,
There's
being
a, yeah, there's a guy named Derek Austin.
Mhm.
He was a new narrator, maybe had 1 or 2 books, came in, auditioned for stuff. He got some coaching, things like that. And now he's doing some of the horror bestsellers that we publish, and he's doing them on royalty share. And I'm paying him $500 a month
Wow.
because, and that's just on royalties. So, um, it's the work's out there, the money is out there, but you have to know your target.
Right.
And if you have a passion for horror, it comes through in your performance.
Okay. Well, fantastic. Well, you've been awesome, awesome, awesome. So appreciate you being here, and
Thank you so much, Don.
we will have you back again because and so when you're if these deals go through or if they don't, we'll have you back again to talk about cool stuff coming up in the industry. But appreciate your time. Happy you were
Absolutely.
here. And to wrap up, Johnny will be back next week. Be sure to check
Yeah,
out precheck.vojumpstart.com. That's our new checker for that validates audiobooks before they go to the publishers. Check that out when you get a chance. That's all over the place in the groups. So we're happy you're here. So we'll see you next week. And as always, we'll see you on the wires. Have a great week.